Everyone told me I was losing my mind. My husband said I was paranoid. My best friend said I was creating problems that didn't exist. My own mother told me I needed therapy for my trust issues. And for 6 months, I believed them. I believed I was the problem. I believed something was broken inside me. Until I found a single forgotten receipt in a jacket pocket that proved I wasn't crazy at all. I was just surrounded by liars. My name is Catherine Hayes, and this is the story of how everyone gaslit me into questioning my own sanity, and how one tiny piece of evidence destroyed every lie they'd built around me. It started small, subtle, the kind of thing you notice but can't quite explain. My husband Michael would come home from work, and his stories wouldn't match up. He'd tell me he had lunch with his boss, but then mention ordering Chinese food when his boss was allergic to soy. He'd say he worked late on a Tuesday, but his coworker would casually mention seeing him leave early that day. Little inconsistencies that made my stomach twist, but that I couldn't prove meant anything. When I'd bring them up, Michael would look at me like I was speaking another language. He'd sigh, shake his head, and say things like, "Katie, you're remembering wrong," or "That's not what I said at all," or my personal favorite, "Are you feeling okay? You've been really off lately." And I doubt myself. Because Michael was smart, successful, confident. He was a corporate attorney who argued cases for a living. He knew how to make people believe anything. And I was just a graphic designer working from home, spending most of my days alone, so maybe I was remembering things wrong. Maybe I was the one who wasn't paying attention. Maybe I was creating problems because I was bored or insecure or broken somehow. But the feeling wouldn't go away. That sick, heavy feeling in my gut that something was fundamentally wrong. I started noticing more. Michael's phone was always face down now. He'd changed all his passwords without telling me. He'd started going to the gym at weird hours, 5 in the morning or 11 at night, times that made no sense for someone with his schedule. He'd come home smelling like unfamiliar perfume, but would tell me I was imagining it, that it was probably just someone's laundry detergent at the gym. He'd have lipstick on his collar and swear it was from me, even though I hadn't worn that shade in years. And when I'd point these things out, he wouldn't get defensive. He'd get concerned, worried. He'd hold my hands and look into my eyes and say, "Katie, I'm really worried about you. This paranoia isn't healthy. Maybe you should talk to someone." So I did. I went to therapy like he suggested, like everyone suggested, convinced that something was wrong with me. I told my therapist about my suspicions, about the inconsistencies, about how I felt like I was living in a reality no one else could see. And you know what she said? She said it sounded like I had anxiety and trust issues stemming from childhood abandonment. She prescribed medication, suggested I work on my self-esteem, encouraged me to stop obsessing over small details that probably meant nothing. And I took the medication. I tried to stop noticing. I tried to convince myself I was the problem. But then things escalated. Michael started staying out overnight. He'd say he was at a work conference or visiting his brother in Seattle or helping a friend move. But when I'd call his brother would sound confused. When I'd check his work calendar that we shared for family planning, there'd be no conferences listed. When I'd ask his friends about the move, they'd have no idea what I was talking about. And when I'd confront Michael with these contradictions, he'd turn it around on me every single time. "Why are you calling my brother to check up on me? That's controlling. Why are you stalking my work calendar? That's toxic. Why are you interrogating my friends? You're embarrassing me, Katie." And then came the line that almost destroyed me completely. "I can't live like this anymore. With you constantly accusing me, constantly doubting me, constantly making me feel like a criminal in my own marriage. If you can't trust me, maybe we need to reconsider this relationship." That threat, that ultimatum, it worked. Because I was terrified of losing him, terrified of being alone, terrified of proving everyone right that I was broken and paranoid and impossible to love. So I stopped asking questions. I stopped checking. I stopped trusting my own instincts. I made myself small and quiet and compliant. I apologized for things I didn't do wrong. I medicated myself into numbness. I became a ghost in my own life. My friends started distancing themselves. They'd roll their eyes when I'd mention feeling uneasy. They changed the subject when I tried to express my concerns. My best friend Sarah finally told me bluntly over coffee, "Katie, you need to stop. Michael is a good guy. You're going to ruin your marriage with this crazy behavior. Some of us would kill to have a husband like him." Even my mother, the one person I thought would always believe me, sat me down and said, "Sweetheart, you're driving yourself insane. You're seeing things that aren't there. Michael loves you. Stop looking for problems." So I did. For 2 months, I stopped looking. I stopped questioning. I stopped existing as anything other than the perfect, trusting, uncomplicated wife everyone wanted me to be. And I felt myself disappearing. If you're still here watching this, and God, I hope you are, because what happens next changes everything, do me a favor and hit that like button. This story is about to take a turn that proves why you should always trust your gut. Then came the day that saved my life. It was a cold Saturday morning in March. Michael had left for his weekly poker game with the guys, something he'd been doing for months. I was doing laundry, something I'd done 1,000 times, when I found it. A receipt, crumpled in the inside pocket of his navy blazer. The one he'd worn on Thursday, when he said he was working late at the office. I almost threw it away without looking, but something made me unfold it. And when I did, my hand started shaking so badly, I had to sit down. It was from a restaurant called Bella Vista, an upscale Italian place downtown. Dated Thursday at 8:30 p.m. The receipt showed 2 entrees, 2 glasses of expensive wine, 1 tiramisu, 1 creme brulee. Total, $247. I stared at that receipt for what felt like hours, my brain trying to process what I was seeing. Michael said he worked late on Thursday. Said he grabbed a sandwich at his desk. Said he was home by 9:30. But this receipt showed him at a romantic dinner at 8:30, ordering 2 desserts, spending the kind of money he'd yell at me for spending on groceries. I took a photo of the receipt. Then I did something I'd stopped doing months ago. I investigated. I called Bella Vista and asked to speak to the manager. Told her I was trying to track down my husband's credit card statement and needed to confirm a charge. She was helpful, friendly, completely unsuspecting. She looked up the receipt and said, "Oh yes, I remember that night. Your husband and that lovely blonde woman were celebrating something. They seemed very happy." The room spun. My vision blurred. But this time, I wasn't doubting myself. This time, I had proof. I hired a private investigator that same day, paid him with money from my freelance account that Michael didn't know about. And I told him to follow Michael everywhere. Document everything. I needed more than a receipt. I needed undeniable, irrefutable evidence that I wasn't crazy, that I hadn't been crazy, that everyone who told me I was broken had been protecting a liar. The investigator came back 3 days later with a folder so thick it made me nauseous. Photos. Dozens of them. Michael with a woman named Jessica Torres. Michael kissing her in parking lots. Michael holding her hand walking through parks. Michael entering and leaving her apartment at all hours. Bank statements showing payments to her rent. Hotel receipts from weekends he said he was at conferences. Text messages the investigator had managed to retrieve showing Michael calling me his crazy wife who believes anything, and Jessica laughing about how easy it was to keep the paranoid one in the dark. But the worst part? The absolute soul-destroying part? Jessica wasn't just his mistress. She was his paralegal. The woman I'd met at his office holiday party. The woman who'd smiled at me and told me how lucky Michael was to have such a supportive wife. The woman who'd witnessed me apologizing to Michael for being too suspicious at that same party when I'd questioned why he was texting during dinner. She'd watched me gaslight myself and found it entertaining. I didn't confront Michael immediately. I did something smarter. I made copies of everything, sent them to my lawyer, my therapist, my parents, Sarah, and every single person who'd told me I was crazy. I included a note that said simply, "I wasn't crazy. You just believed a liar." Then I packed my things while Michael was at his poker game that was actually another night with Jessica, and I left. Filed for divorce the next morning. Attached every piece of evidence to the filing. And I requested that it all become part of public record. Before I tell you how this ends, I need you to subscribe to this channel and drop a comment telling me if you've ever been gaslit, because the ending is exactly the kind of justice that makes everything worth it. The fallout was nuclear. The evidence went public. Michael's law firm saw everything: the affair with his paralegal, the company credit card he'd used for romantic dinners, the work hours he'd falsified. They fired him immediately. Fired Jessica, too. His reputation in the legal community was obliterated. Nobody wanted to hire the attorney who'd gaslit his wife for months while conducting an affair on company time. But I wasn't finished. I reached out to every person who'd called me crazy. I sent them the evidence with a detailed timeline showing how Michael had manipulated everyone, how he turned my support system against me, how he'd weaponized their love for me to make me doubt my sanity. Some apologized. Some tried to justify their behavior. Sarah, my former best friend, tried to blame herself. But I didn't want apologies. I wanted them to sit with what they'd done, to understand that their refusal to believe me had almost destroyed me. My therapist, to her credit, apologized professionally and admitted she'd failed me by not recognizing the signs of gaslighting. She offered to write letters to support my divorce case, confirming that my instincts had been correct all along and that Michael had engaged in psychological abuse. Those letters were damning. The judge took one look at the evidence and awarded me everything: the house, the cars, 70% of our shared assets. And she ordered Michael to pay for my therapy, past, present, and future, as part of the settlement. Michael tried to fight it, tried to claim I'd invaded his privacy, that I'd hired the investigator illegally, that I was vindictive and unstable. But the evidence was overwhelming. The judge literally told him, "Mr. Hayes, you spent months convincing your wife and everyone around her that she was mentally unstable for noticing your affair. That's not just infidelity. That's psychological abuse. You're lucky she's only asking for assets and not pressing criminal charges." Today, I'm 3 years removed from that marriage. I rebuilt my graphic design business and now specialize in branding for women's advocacy organizations. I make twice what I made before. I bought my own house, a beautiful craftsman with a garden where I grow vegetables and flowers. I'm in a healthy relationship with someone who encourages my intuition instead of questioning my sanity. And I volunteer with organizations that help other victims of gaslighting, teaching them to trust themselves even when everyone around them says they're wrong. Michael? Last I heard, he's working at a small firm in another state, struggling to rebuild a reputation he destroyed himself. Jessica left him 6 months after everything fell apart. Turns out she wasn't interested in a disgraced lawyer with no money and a toxic reputation. And every person who told me I was crazy learned a lesson they'll never forget. Just because someone questions reality doesn't mean they're wrong. Sometimes they're the only one brave enough to see the truth. My name is Catherine Hayes. They called me paranoid, delusional, unstable, and crazy for 6 months because I noticed what everyone refused to see. But one forgotten receipt proved what I knew all along. I wasn't losing my mind. I was the only one paying attention. And now the man who tried to convince me I was insane gets to live knowing that his arrogance, his carelessness with one tiny piece of evidence, destroyed everything he'd built on lies. That receipt didn't just prove his affair. It proved my sanity. And that's the kind of vindication that money can't buy.